So thank you everyone for joining the Yale Alumni Nonprofit Alliance, otherwise known as YANA, for our monthly webinar series on best practices for nonprofits and those in the social impact space. Today we're going to be talking about marketing communications, particularly brand building for social impact. Our speaker today is a passionate person about all sorts of things, but particularly about leveraging the power of brands to drive social change. Stephanie Rath has most recently served as the Vice President of Marketing and Brand Management at the YMCA of USA, located in Chicago. And she previously led the brand marketing team at Feeding America, which is the nation's largest hunger charity. And prior to that, spent 12 years running big consumer brands at Quaker Oats and PepsiCo. Stephanie is a graduate of Yale University, TD 96, Phi Beta Kappa and magna cum laude. She's been an active contributor and board member of the Yale Club of Chicago. She's now stepped up to be the head of our YANA Chicago chapter, so we're just delighted to have her on board and looking forward to a really interactive, fun program. Before I turn the mic over to Stephanie, just wanted to let people know I'll be monitoring the Q&A and chat functions. We ask that you, if you can, hold your questions to the end. Stephanie's getting through a lot of material and may actually answer your question. And then we may have some times throughout where we're going to try to make it interactive, and I will try to unmute people or answer if you give you some prompt ahead of time if you need to raise your hand. But Stephanie will lead us through that. So please give your attention over to Stephanie, and I'm going to put myself on mute and enjoy the program.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Can you hear me okay? Awesome, great. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. I am so thrilled to be here today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to Rachel for her leadership of the Yale Alumni Nonprofit Alliance. I've been working in the nonprofit sector in Chicago for about a decade now and was so happy to see the formation of this great alumni group. And what an incredible way to convene alumni and friends of alumni who are working in the nonprofit space. So really thrilled about this and just incredible work done by the Yale Nonprofit Alliance. I encourage you guys to, if you haven't, check out the website with just a plethora of great resources. Get plugged in with your local chapter, et cetera. It's really just a wonderful network to be a part of. So glad to be here today. Thank you, Rachel. And we are going to get started now. If I can advance my slide. Hold on a sec here. There we go. Great. So please do check out YaleNonprofitAlliance.org. Full of great information there on the website. For anyone who is in the Chicago area, please consider getting involved in starting up a new chapter. Bring your talents, bring your passions. We'd love to have you. We'll be having an organizing call on the 24th of July at noon, and you can sign up to get the invite at the website, YaleNonprofitAlliance.org. So hope you'll join us for that, especially if you're in Chicago. All right, so with that, let's start with a question. So first off, I want you all to think about this. What is a brand? Is it a logo? Is it the most succinct summary of your organization and everything that you do? Is it the perception of your organization as it exists in the mind of the public? Is it a bank of goodwill that can be fortified or depleted? Or is it all of the above? And hopefully you agree with me, it's all of the above. So it's pretty important. My next question is, okay, so brands are important, but why is a brand important to a nonprofit organization? We are involved in changing lives. We're involved in mission work. Why does it matter what our brand is, and why should we care about this? Well, it's important for a whole bunch of reasons. So let's talk about a few of them. It's a first impression when people first meet you. It's a trust bank to the people you serve and the people who support your mission. It can be a unifier to all your stakeholders. It can be a symbol or a beacon for a particular issue, a firm stance in a changing world. And it can be a badge of honor that supporters are proud to wear. So lots of reasons brands are important, and especially so for nonprofits. And as someone who's worked both in the business sector, for-profit sector, as well as the nonprofit sector, I can say I think that nonprofit brands are in fact some of the most powerful because they exist to change lives. And so they deserve our focus, our attention, and our resources to build, to monitor, and to strengthen over time. So thrilled to talk about this with all of you today. So what are we doing today? We're going to do a few things. Number one, we're going to learn how to apply marketing strategies to your mission. We're going to sharpen how you position your organization to drive wider support for your organization. We'll review some tools you can use. And finally, we're going to make some connections with one another. So to that end, Rachel and I talked about this. If we were live and in person, you'd be probably meeting one another, you know, shaking hands, understanding what each other do. We'd love to recreate that experience for you. So if you are interested in being a resource to your colleagues dialed in today, please type your full name in the chat function and let us know. And what we will be doing is sending out a list of everybody's contact information to everyone who's opted in after this call. So I hope you'll think about doing that. So go ahead and type that in the chat box now. And we will do another call out for this towards the end of the webinar in case you can't do that right now. So, all right, so with that, let's dive in. So first off, what are we going to be talking about today? So we're going to talk about brand building best practices. And they fall into three big groups of things. The first thing is the strategic foundation. This is about your mission statement, your brand positioning, your name, and your logo. We'll spend the most amount of time on this. Next, we'll talk about embracing the brand, really conveying it in every experience, every touch point someone has with your organization. And then last, we'll talk about disciplined brand use, how to monitor and measure it over time and keep it strong and healthy as one of your most vital assets. All right, so we're going to start with the strategic foundation, your brand. Where does your brand begin? It begins with your mission. Your mission is your organization's purpose. This is why you do what you do, the very reason that your organization exists. And ideally, your mission exists at the center of three things. First, what you're deeply passionate about. Second, what you can be best in the world at, relative to any other organization or any other group. And third, what drives your resource engine. This is from Jim Collins' Good to Great. And I think it's a great way to think about your mission statement. Many organizations also articulate a vision, which is your future state that you aspire to. This is aspirational, it's motivating, and another thing that can be helpful to articulate for your organization. So I love this tool, and I want to give you some examples to put this into context. So at Feeding America, our mission remains steady for 50 some odd years that the organization has been in existence, and it is to feed America's hungry through a nationwide network of member food banks and to engage our country in the fight to end hunger. The vision is a hunger-free America. So a great example. It's truly stood the test of time and really pointed and unique, different from anybody else. At the YMCA, we're in a little bit of a different situation. The YMCA is a 175-year-old organization grounded in faith, really, grounded in Christian principles. So the mission has remained steady over the years, and it is to put Christian principles into practice through programs that build healthy spirit, mind, and body for all. What's interesting about the mission is that it's in some ways a legacy mission, and you will see that we have chosen in our marketing materials, we often don't actually reference the mission, and the reason is that the organization has grown, and we are truly for all people, no matter who you are, no matter what you believe, no matter where you're from, the why is there to connect people, to strengthen community. And so the Christian heritage is something that we know can also be, limiting in terms of our impact. So interesting, and perhaps some of you are in a situation like that as well. Our vision, brought by our visionary CEO, Kevin Washington, is to develop new generations of change makers who will create the communities we all want to live in. So that's our future vision at the Y. You may want to start your exercise right here by writing down your organization's mission, your purpose, why you do what you do. Also articulate the future vision to which you aspire, and then you can evaluate it using these 3 circles to say, is it what you're deeply passionate about? Is it something you can be best in the world at? And does it cover what drives your resource engine? So that's a great first place to start. Might cause you to consider, is it time to actually update and refresh our mission? Or no, do you want to remain steady with your mission going forward? Okay, so that is your organization's mission. And now what I want to talk about is your brand positioning. So shifting gears. Brand positioning is how you express your mission to external audiences. Sometimes it's called the purpose. Sometimes it's called the promise. No matter what it's called, it answers 3 fundamental questions: who, what, and how. Let's talk about each of those. So the who is prioritized audiences that you seek to engage. Most likely, your top group is going to be potential supporters who will bring resources, whether in the form of money, time, in-kind gifts to do the work that you do. It may include collaborators with whom you work to achieve your mission, and beneficiaries, the people who benefit from your work and your mission. But that is the first and most important question, and often the most difficult for nonprofits who often have trouble defining and discerning who it is from an audience standpoint they seek to engage and prioritizing those people. Number 2 is the what. So this is the benefit that audience gains by engaging with your organization. Most often, there's an obvious rational benefit that they get for engaging with your organization. Even better if you can define what's the emotional benefit they gain by engaging with your organization. What does it make them feel? What does it say about them as a person or their identity? That's really where the power is. And finally, how. So this is the bringing it to life. This is words, visuals, experience, taglines, a few things that you use to communicate about your brand positioning to everybody who comes in contact with you. Here too, we need to make some choices as to what falls under this. So those are the 3 questions. And what I want to do next is share with you some examples of how you can tackle this for a brand. So I'm going to start with the YMCA, where we are just recently did a bunch of work around our audience and whom it is we seek to engage. So first off, I would say, of course, the Y is for all people. We welcome everyone, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from. That's core to our mission. And yet, when we think about our marketing efforts and our growth for the future, it's important to be choiceful and know amongst everybody who are the most likely candidates to want to get involved in our work and support what we're doing. And so we've done a fair amount of research, talked to various Y leaders across the country, and we learned that there are some key characteristics of people who are the most likely candidates to get involved. Demographically, we find that parents and seniors are often at a life stage where the Y is particularly relevant to them. We find that people with specific sort of functional needs find that the Y is relevant to them. So perhaps seeking programs like childcare, after school or summer camp, people seeking fitness, youth sports programs, et cetera, the Y is particularly relevant to. And finally, there's a belief and behavior element. People tend to be involved in their community, believe in diversity and inclusion, have compassion for others, and a desire to pay it forward. All of these things characterize the audience that we seek to engage first and foremost in the work of the Y. So next, we articulated a positioning statement for the Y, and we call it our brand purpose at the Y, and I'll share that with you next. It goes like this. The Y is the leading nonprofit committed to strengthening community by connecting all people to their potential, purpose, and each other. So we created this statement with input from many stakeholders and leaders, and we did some research on it as well. And we chose these words very deliberately. First off, we call ourselves the Y, which is the nickname that people have given the organization and conveys the inclusive and open approach that we take to all that we do. And we also say that we're the leading nonprofit committed to strengthening community. That is the core of what we do. That is our unique thing that we contribute to the world. And whether Programmatically, it looks like swim lessons or sports programs or after-school care. What we're really doing through all of that is strengthening community, helping people be their best selves, connecting them to others who are like them and unlike them, building the very fabric on which communities thrive. So that is our brand purpose statement, which we're pretty excited about and are using. We also defined areas of impact. We have a pretty broad mission, pretty broad purpose there. And so the areas in which we work and define our impact are 3: youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. We also define values that define what we believe at the Y. And these have been consistent for many years, and they are caring, respect, honesty, and responsibility. And then we built that out into a full brand personality, which helps describe the way it should feel to interact with the Y, as if the Y were a person. How does it feel to be in our facilities, to be following our social media feeds, to be on our website? And these personality characteristics are as follows: welcoming, genuine, nurturing, hopeful, and determined. So we've defined those and seek to embody those in all that we do. And last, to sort of sum up all of this, we have a tagline. And the tagline is meant to be a quick, short, memorable summary of all of that we can put in our advertising, on our website, in our social channels, inside our facilities, etc. And the tagline is "For a Better Us." Really succinct, memorable line. So we're thrilled about that. And then finally, when it came time to share all of these materials with staff and volunteers and board members across the country, one of the things we did was we put it into a wheel to kind of organize all of these pieces in one visual and to help people see that all of these elements fit together and that they all emanate from our core positioning, the key thought in our mission statement, which is that the Y is for all. So here's the positioning wheel there. So that's just one example that you all may find helpful to see. And now what I want to do is share another example. This one is from Feeding America that I think is really a great tool if you're doing this work for the first time for your organization. So here it is. It's a brand positioning pyramid model and really helps you make these choices to position your organization and your brand. So first, you're going to want to fill in the box there with your audience. Who is it that you seek to gain support from, or if there are multiple, prioritize them. And then you're going to work through the pieces of this triangle. So at the top, we have the brand promise, which answers what the brand will do for a potential supporter. It's externally facing. Next, you're going to talk about your benefit. This connects the promise to the supporter's needs. So this is where you'll have something that's functional. What do they get from being involved with you? And then something that's emotional. How do they feel when they get involved with your organization? Next, we have the reason to believe. And this is often all the facts and figures and data points about your organization and your impact that really backs up that benefit and that promise. Next, you have your brand personality, similar to what we saw with the Y, kind of what is your brand like if it were a person? And finally, you have your enduring brand assets. So these are those few critical, ownable executional elements like logo, a tagline, visual cues, audio cues, etc. So that's the model, and I think it's really it's a really great structure to follow. And at Feeding America, we defined our audience target as today's family, so kind of family defined broadly for today's world, and we sort of visualize them in pictures. And then we work to fill out the pyramid. And at the top of the pyramid, we identified our promise as "we share meals that matter." And similar to the YMCA one, we put a lot of thought into these words. We chose the word meals because meals convey more meaning than just food. Meals convey a memory of a group around a table, eating together, making connections with one another while they do it. We talk about that matter because we know that food and meals convey something more than just the food and the meals. It actually helps the receiver live a full life, be their best selves, and it helps the giver. It feels so good to provide a meal for someone who needs it, right? So that's kind of the summary there. We share meals that matter. And then we had our benefits, 2 functional benefits there, and then 2 more emotional benefits that really bring this to life. connecting the abundance of food with families facing hunger, this idea that I made a smart investment with my donation, that I feel the satisfaction of sharing a meal with someone who needs it, and then belonging to a community who's making this impact in the country. So those are the benefits. Reasons to believe, you see lots of great facts and figures that there are tons of, and I'm sure your organization has them too, but all the great facts, right? Serving every community, providing 4 billion meals, rescuing more than 3 billion pounds of food, mobilizing 2 million people across the country, really great facts that just sort of back up that promise and that benefit. The brand personality came out of discussions with volunteers and leaders at local food banks, and that is the everyday hero. Empathetic, deeply committed, persistent, resourceful, collaborative, and above all, humble. So everything from Feeding America seeks to convey this personality. And then finally, enduring brand assets for Feeding America are the logo, color orange, the wheat stalk, fresh foods, and families. So that was a great model. We asked ourselves when we finished, how strong is this? And we tested it versus this metric here, also from good to great. Is it true to our organization? Yes, it is. Is it motivating to our priority audience of today's families? Yes, it is. And is it unique to our organization versus others? Indeed it is. So we knew that we had hit the sweet spot there when we finished that. So you may want to do something similar with your organization. A lot of fun to do this stuff, really thoughtful, forces you to make a lot of great decisions, but will really help ground all of your marketing and all of your efforts to build your brand over time. Okay, so we have now finished talking about your mission and your brand positioning. And next, what I want to talk about is brand names and logos. So to start us off, I want you to think in your mind, what are some examples of memorable brand logos that come to mind? Probably a few are popping in your head as you think about this. Here's a few that I often think of. Target, American Red Cross, McDonald's, Quaker, Facebook, some powerful brands that exist in the world today. And let's think, what is it that they have in common? Number of things. Their name conveys their positioning. They are unique from others. They're succinct. Their logo incorporates a simple telegraphic visual cue that reinforces that meaning. They have a color that conveys the positioning. And they look great, large and small, whether on your phone, on a billboard, in a facility, they look great. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, they are used consistently. So those are some characteristics. And next, what I want to do is, again, share with you some examples of two different brand logo situations that I've encountered in my career. So first, we'll start with Feeding America. Feeding America was originally called America's Second Harvest and changed its name in 2008. So you may wonder, why would America's Second Harvest change their name, having had this name for 30 some odd years? Well, pretty clear reason. That name was not very clear about the organization's mission or purpose. And became clear that it was inhibiting growth, and that a name that clearly stated the organization's mission and purpose would actually put the organization in a position to grow. So really bold move, thoughtfully done. The name was researched. The logo was thoughtfully designed and researched with a lot of intention placed behind it. For example, the colors are meant to indicate things. Orange is sort of the color of hunger and the color of the harvest. Green is, of course, the earth. Wheat stalk conveys the nation's bountiful produce and, food. So really thoughtfully designed logo, used very carefully and deliberately across all the materials when rolled out. And how did it work? It worked really well. So we then began to track awareness of the brand over time and could see that it showed tremendous growth over time, from 13% in 2009 all the way to 50% of the wider public saying, yes, I'm aware of Feeding America by 2017. So really, really great growth in terms of the breadth of people understanding what the brand was all about, and largely done without paid media, by the way, with donated media and gifts from donors. Also important to knowing how many people knew about the brand was, well, what do they think of the brand? What does it mean to them? What is the perception that we're building in people's minds? And so we also track that. And we can see here a list of attributes that people associate with the Feeding America brand, which are really, really wonderful and very much reflect the brand personality and positioning that we were building. So people say that Feeding America is committed, compassionate, respectful, trustworthy, resourceful, inspirational, etc. Really, really wonderful attributes and a sign of a really healthy brand. So that's a great story. And now what I want to share with you is a little bit about the YMCA. In a bit of a different situation. The YMCA is 175 years old. It's a federated nonprofit comprised of 800 some independent 501c3 YMCAs across the country. And the logo and the name treatment followed. In 2006, this is a visual of the way the YMCA appeared in communities across the country. And as you can see, it very much lacked unity. Lots of different variations here, working against this core principle of consistent treatment in every place people experience the brand. So the team made the bold decision to unify and created a new design, look and feel and logo treatment for the organization and worked to implement this across all YMCAs across the country and in all marketing materials across the board. Beautifully executed, and once again here we see a great success of this work. 10 years later, we did some research to see how to go, what was the difference, and what we saw was actually a gain in both awareness and familiarity on top of already high levels for the Y. So very smart move, really well done, and glad to see the result of that. Likewise, we looked at attributes. What do people think about the Y? What do they associate with the brand? And in this chart here, it's a bit of an eye chart, but this is a list of attributes amongst the wider public of donors. And what you see here are some of those metrics that I circled coming to the top. They're high and they grew, and they all have to do with strengthening community, which of course is the Y's core positioning. So that was really great to see. So those are two examples. And you may be in a similar spot where you're saying, how strong is our name? How strong is our logo? Is it time for a change or a refresh like we did at the Y? And so I would encourage you to go through those that checklist of assessments to determine if you might be in that spot. And if you find yourself saying, yes, indeed, it is time for a name and logo update, I would urge you to do this really well and to follow some of these kind of key steps to a successful rebranding. The first of which is to do an objective measure of your brand. So if you are unsure of what your brand or your logo means, get some input, do some research with that wider audience that you seek to engage. Find out what they know about your brand, what they think about it, how strong is it today, so that you can start from a place of knowledge and understanding. Secondly, don't rush it. This is a big deal. Plan ahead. It's going to take 2 years or more to do this and do it well. You can think of it almost like a capital campaign, or perhaps pair it with one, with a silent period, a period of getting stakeholders involved, and then finally your public launch when you have all of your pieces put together thoughtfully and well designed. Make sure along with that you enlist stakeholders and you have key folks on board with the plan so that you have wide support for your new name or your new logo. When you create the name itself and the logo, do it with high standards. Maybe you're working with, say, pro bono volunteer designer. That's great. But make sure that that ultimate name and logo really delivers on what you need for the organization. Do some research. Make sure that it's not a decision made solely by insiders, but that you have the opinion and the perspective of the audience you seek to engage in that. Make sure that no one else owns the name already, so you have sort of full right to use it. So lots to think about there. And then finally, plan a transition period. So I would urge you to use both names on your materials for at least 1 year, which is what we did at Feeding America to help ease that transition over time. So just some key pointers there. And that wraps up our section on the strategic foundation. And now we're going to shift into embracing the brand, which is the second key principle of building a strong brand. So I want to start with the concept of the brand linking all messaging. The brand should be at the center of every experience that you create, whether that's PR, whether it's on your digital channels, whether it's volunteer events, whatever it is, it should very much reflect those core principles, those core foundations of your brand in each and every place. And so to illustrate this point, we're going to try a fun little experiment here on the call. I want for each of you guys to think in your mind about the best nonprofit slogan or tagline that you've used at your nonprofit, just the most powerful one that you put in your materials, you've used a lot of places. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually unmute the lines, and we're all going to say, we're all going to say it at the same time. After Rachel gives us the thumbs up and after I count to 3, just for fun.
Give me a sec.
Oh boy, this is going to be neat. We're making an interactive session, folks, out of a Zoom webinar.
I'm looking to see it. There was a button earlier that said unmute.
Oh, really?
Find it. So hang on.
Oh, okay.
May have to do
That's
this.
hilarious. Well, we can also skip it if it's not working.
Number of people that I can't do this more.
That's all right. We could just keep going.
All right. Well, people can just, let's try a few.
Okay, just unmute a few people. Okay, folks, are you thinking of your favorite tagline, the one that you've used successfully in lots of places, or maybe one you've seen another organization use? Okay, so we're all going to say it together on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Just
better.
Keeping kids in school.
All right. Very good, folks. Now, listeners, did you get that tagline? No, you probably didn't. That was kind of a muddled mess, right? Okay, so now we're going to try our next experiment, which is together, we're all going to say the YMCA tagline, just as an example, for a better us. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to count to 3, and then we're all going to say it. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
For a better us.
Okay, that kind of worked. So you get sort of the chorus effect, right? And you can actually hear the tagline and it makes sense. So this is the principle, right? So when you as an organization are putting out all kinds of really great marketing materials, but they're not aligned with each other, it's actually working against your message and establishing your organization in the mind of the public. So that's the concept here. And that's what we're trying to do, is to really embody that in each and every piece, each and every material, each and every interaction that we have. So some things get in the way of this. You may ask yourself that, what gets in the way of this unified communication? When I ask groups, I often hear things like sub-brands get in the way, or say programs that want their own branding, or donors that want their materials really prominent and present. So all of these things can work against this single focused unified messaging. And what I'm going to share with you next are some tools that you can use to help get people on board with this common look and feel that you're trying to embody in everything. So first is know your audience. Help everybody who works in your organization understand that audience that you are seeking to engage in your mission. So here's an example of what we did at Feeding America. We created some profiles of our core audience, and it helped our stakeholders, our staff, our volunteers understand and really imagine this audience that we were seeking to engage in our work. So that's one thing that you can do. Another thing that helps is to create style guides. And this is important for Feeding America, where we had a brand new name and logo. We had to really treat it exactly the same way every time we used it. And so here's a picture of the logo guidelines where we said, no, you can't do it in purple. You can't do it in different colors. It must always look like this, and help teach people the importance of that and everything that they did. At the YMCA, we recently rolled out our new brand purpose and all of that, and created a series of guides for staff in different roles. And one that was particularly helpful was what we called the Quick Guide. And it was a simple all-purpose guide meant for staff in any role, non-marketing people, volunteers, board members, all of the above. And it just gave the most salient information people needed to have to embody the brand and all that they were doing. So this is what it looked like. And next you see the picture of some of the components within it. We had some quotes, some inspiration. We put the brand foundational elements, the vision, the purpose, the values all in there. Some visual representation of how the brand shows up visually. And people really found this to be helpful. Next, I'm showing a little call out here of the visual elements that we used for the Y. So you see the logo treatment, you see the photography style that we use, which is this sort of realistic moments that we can all relate to. Our font, our tagline, our colors, all of that here. Great examples. We also included some don't do's. We saw the sort of typical mistakes people make and specifically showed them what not to do with the logo, which was helpful to folks to see as well. So those are style guides, all I think helpful, and I would encourage you guys to create those. Another thing that can be helpful in building ambassadors for your brand, advocates amongst everybody who's involved with you, is to actually create an elevator pitch. You'd be surprised, but people may not know how to describe your organization, why you exist, and what you do in a way that's kind of quick and pointed that anybody can relate to. And so you may want to create one for them. We did this at Feeding America, and it went like this. It starts with, how can 1 in 8 people face hunger while billions of pounds of food go to waste? The Feeding America network of food banks secures 4 billion meals and provides them to people in every community in America through food pantries, soup kitchens, and meal programs. We all have a role to play in solving hunger: businesses, charities, government, and you. And together we can solve hunger. Support your local food bank and Feeding America. So that's this was our elevator pitch. And to break down the components here that make this work so well, first we have the hook. So you have a question that gets people's attention and makes them realize, oh, wow, there's a problem and this is something I should care about. We have what we do explained pretty succinctly and clearly in tangible terms that people could relate to. We have an inspiring vision here so people want to get involved. And finally, a call to action. So this was helpful to use, and folks found this really helpful and use this in lots of forums, and you could create something similar for your organization to get everybody on board. So elevator pitch is a great tool. All right, so next we're going to look at some marketing materials from the Y and from Feeding America that help bring together these principles in real life. So first we've got some YMCA materials. These are digital banners that we provided to local Ys to use, and you'll see all of this come to life. You see our logo treatment, you'll see our brand promise about strengthening communities, you see our visual style of the real photography that feels approachable and real. Our tagline fits in here, the Y for a better us. So just an example of what this looks like in imagery. And then next I want to share with you a video that brings this to life. So this was a PSA campaign that we created with Droga 5, our ad agency out of New York. And it was all grounded in this idea of strengthening community, that all too often in America, your zip code can determine your future. And at the Y, we think that's not right. We think all people deserve the opportunity to reach their full potential, and that's why we exist. So this advertising campaign was all about that, and I'm going to play that for you guys next. Here we go.
The zip code you're born into can determine your future. Your school, your job, your dreams, your problems. But at the Y, we create opportunities for everyone, no matter who you are or where you're from. For a better us, donate to your local Y today.
Right, so we were thrilled with that piece and felt it really brought together all of those key elements that we're trying to convey about the brand in a really tangible way. That also features actual members and staff and volunteers from YMCAs across the country in the footage, which is really fun. So proud of that piece. And then next I want to share with you an example from Feeding America. This too was a PSA campaign that we ran across the country, features staff and volunteers at food banks, and really gives you that peek into the work of food banks and how it is that they're capturing this abundance of food and getting it to people who need it day in, day out in communities across the country. So we'll play this one next.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Great, so that was Feeding America. And this brings us to our last section, disciplined brand use. So this is about being choiceful and specific about the way you monitor and manage your brand over time. This idea that your brand is in many ways your most valuable asset as a nonprofit. And it's something that you want to protect and strengthen over time because it's going to help you deliver on your mission. So first, we're going to talk about evaluation and monitoring. So the first concept I want to share with you is the engagement funnel. This is a marketing concept, and the idea here is if you want to get someone involved in your organization, in your nonprofit, first they must be aware of your nonprofit and what you do. Then they need to be considering getting involved. Then they need to get to the point where they're actually interested in contributing in some way. And then finally, something encourages them to actually take action by donating or giving or advocating or whatever it is you want them to do. And so it's important as you're monitoring the health of your brand to understand where people are on this engagement funnel to determine what it is you need to work on. If you're a new brand like Feeding America was back in 2008, your key problem is actually awareness. People don't even know that you exist. So that's really important. If you're a more established brand like the YMCA, people already know about you. The opportunity is really more to convert that awareness into interest and ultimately action. So this is an important concept to share and to think about as you are monitoring the health of your brand. And I want to share with you 2 examples of tracking that I've been involved with. First, from Feeding America. Shared with you before, we, after changing the name, needed to monitor the awareness and how that was growing over time. And we put together this really super fun eye chart that I love that's in fact a funnel. And this chart shares with you across the top the different years going all the way back to 2009. And across the left there, you see those measures along the funnel. So we start with awareness measures, unaided, aided awareness, et cetera. And then in the middle, you see these intent to get involved measures. At Feeding America, we want people to do all kinds of things, to donate, to advocate, to volunteer, to take digital actions, et cetera. And so we were monitoring that as well. So you see here the just really beautiful growth that we've seen in the brand over the course of those 8 years, getting to that 50% awareness with that wider public in 2017. So really great stuff, really fun to measure. We also measured key kind of ways to understand people's emotional connection to the brand. So at the bottom there, you see measures of that. So we asked people, to what extent do you love or like this brand? And we can see that measure there reaching 34% of people really having that feeling towards the brand. We asked, would you recommend this brand to a friend? And are you proud to talk about this? So ways of getting at that deeper emotional connection that we want the wider public to have in the brand being monitored there. The next example I'll share is from the YMCA. So we have just put in place our first ever ongoing brand tracking study so that we can monitor the health of the brand over time. And we're working with BAV Group on this effort. And you can see here as well, we created a funnel. And the Y, in the center there, you see with the general population, how the Y ranks on these things. And generally what you would expect, the awareness is really high. 98% of people say, oh yes, I'm aware of the Y. We see here that 50% of people say, yep, I'd consider participating or donating or getting involved in the Y. And we broke that down into the different ways that they can get involved. So this was really helpful. We slice and dice this lots of different ways with different subgroups who are of great interest to us in terms of our key audience target and whatnot, and are really looking at this as something that we're going to be monitoring over time to see how we're doing and what's the impact of our collective marketing efforts on growing the brand. Also at the Y, we are monitoring brand attributes and sort of the feelings and associations people have with the brand to see to what extent the brand promise and positioning that we're conveying continues to be felt and known by the wider public. And so this fun chart shows you a little piece of that. So here we have a whole host of attributes that we measured in the study. And on the bottom axis there, you see the weaker ones on the left and the strongest ones on the right for the Y, just in absolute. And then on the vertical axis, you see the extent to which that attribute is unique relative to all other peer organizations doing similar work. So that's a really helpful lens to have, because we want to be uniquely known for these things in the world. And so the top right quadrant there are those attributes that are both really strong and uniquely owned by the Y relative to other brands. So that's great. And as you see, many of those attributes and key things that we're trying to convey are coming through in the data, which is nice to see. Original, friendly, family-oriented, community-oriented, etc. Really great attributes to see there. So there's just a little snapshot into the tracking and to the research. And I would just say, I think it's really important to do this. And regardless of the size of your organization, putting in place some ways of tracking your brand in terms of its awareness and people's intent to get involved with you is really helpful to do, because it allows you to put some actual metrics behind the impact of all the work that you're doing. And finally, I have a concept that I love that I want to share with you, which is about guardrails. So chances are, as a nonprofit, you encounter opportunities, all types, to do all kinds of different things. And a part of managing your brand and your organization well is being really smart about what you say yes to. And for that, I encourage use of this concept of brand as a bank of trust. And you can think of any particular partnership, donation, opportunity as something that could either build your brand, could potentially be neutral to your brand, or that could actually detract from the health of your brand, in which case you got to say no. So it can help to actually articulate these guardrails with your leadership, with your board, so that it's much clearer when an opportunity comes your way, what's in scope for you and what's out of scope. So you may want to think about, there are many things that may be brand builders that are consistent with your mission. They enhance your reputation. Maybe they get you to a new audience group that you're trying to reach. Neutral opportunities may be harder to assess, and you can say, is that mission creep? What are the pros and cons here to make the call? And then those things that really are in the red, that are the things you should say no to, are the obvious direct conflicts with your mission, things that are just inconsistent with your values of an organization, or just purely out of scope, something the world needs, but not at the core of what your organization does, and therefore will take resources away from the core of what you do, and you need to say no. So I think this is a great concept. To give a practical example here at Feeding America, we gave a lot of thought to this and had determined that there were 3 categories of things that we would just never do any sort of kind of public promotion, cause marketing effort around, no matter what. And it was based on understanding of our mission, as well as research we'd done with the wider public, which validated that these things are actually counter to what we stand for. And they were gambling, cigarettes, and alcohol. We just would not do any sort of public-facing promotion, donation, generating anything with those. And that, just proved to be a really smart decision, even though, often we would have opportunities with large, resources attached to them, but we would say no to those things. So this is just to kind of encourage you all to think about this, if you haven't, with your board, with your organization, to define what are those things that are truly out of scope for you, and to set some parameters around those so that you are prepared to really manage your brand and your organization in the best possible way. All right, so with that, to sum it all up, 3 key things you want to do to build your brand at your nonprofit. The first is to set the strategic foundation. This is the most important piece and worth the most amount of time. Your mission, your brand positioning, your name, and your logo, and making sure that those are all working together really clearly and really thoughtfully. Number 2 is embracing your brand, helping your entire organization get behind that brand foundation, build it, embody it, demonstrate it, turn everyone into a brand advocate for you. And finally, disciplined brand use, monitoring your brand over time, making decisions about what you will and won't do that will ultimately build the brand. So those are the 3 principles. And now we've got a little bit of time, so I would love to pause at this point and see if we have any marketing challenges that you all are struggling with. We did a survey to folks who are on this webinar. We got some folks sharing their examples on the survey, which was awesome. So if you're on the call, I hope you will share them, but we'd just love to hear a little bit from you all. What I would love it if you all can do is raise your hand in the Zoom format. And Rachel's going to take a look at that and call on you guys. And I would just ask that when you speak, let us know who you are. Tell us what your Yale affiliation is. You know, what was your college or your school or whatever the case may be. Tell us what your organization is that you're thinking about, and then tell us your problem. And we'd love to help you think about ways that you can solve your marketing challenge here on the call today.
All right, I have somebody keyed up. Meryl, I'm going to unmute you. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on, Meryl. There you go. You should be live. You want to give it a test? Meryl? No, that's not working. I'm going to put you back. Hello? All right, I'm going to mute you again. There was someone else want to raise a hand?
Hello, this is
Yes,
Merle King. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I was wondering if you could address the issue of social media and what platforms have been most successful for you.
Great. Thank you so much, Meryl, right?
It's Merle.
Merle, awesome. And tell us your Yale affiliation and what organization you're with.
I'm a 1979 graduate of the School of Organization and Management.
Awesome.
I have an MPPM and I've been a nonprofit executive for over 40 years, mainly in the area of finance administration and development.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So glad to have you on the call. Where are you dialed in from?
Great Barrington, Massachusetts.
Awesome, in Massachusetts. That's great. Well, thank you for sharing your question. So great question. I'm sure many people have this. Social media, which platforms, what do we do? Wow, this has been a really vibrant area for the past 10 years, right? Social media, and it changes really, really quickly. So I can speak to kind of, you know, generally at the YMCA and also at Feeding America, we made a point to understand, based on our audience, where were they most active? And that's where we would invest our resources. So most recently at the YMCA, we found that Facebook was the most kind of widely used platform amongst people that we were trying to target and by our local Ys, followed by Instagram, followed by Twitter. So that was kind of the rank order for us. And in a world of limited resources, which I'm sure you may have as well, we couldn't be in all these platforms. It's too much to try to manage all of those. And so we limited our posting to those three platforms and would generally kind of modify a little bit, you know, the way in which we would post things for each channel, but those were the ones that we're currently using. And, you know, as with all things, it changes over time. So it's important to stay on top of it and monitor. There are certainly some nonprofits where, you know, maybe LinkedIn is a really important place if you're bigger sort of in the business community and want to be kind of present there. Sort of may depend on your organization and where you're with, but, you know, that was the key for us. Thank you so much for your question. We'd love to take another question. Who would like to raise their hand?
Melanie Langer, you had typed in a few questions. If you wanted to raise your hand, you could ask those live. Oh, we got a few more here. Hang on. I see something that says Zaytuna College Zoom. So I'm going to allow you to talk. Give me a second. And unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, so my name is Faisal Hamid. I'm the Director of Admissions at Zaytuna College, a small liberal arts college in California. I'm Yale College 2013.
Awesome.
My question is about paid search. So how impactful has paid search been for you, particularly Google AdWords?
Great question. So Faisal, it's great to meet you. Thanks so much for joining us. So I would say somewhat effective, but definitely not the biggest part of our marketing mix. At the YMCA, also at Feeding America, we made a point to make use of the Google grant, which allowed us to get, you know, free search media through Google first and foremost. So primarily that's what we were using. It does have some restrictions on what you can and can't do. We did need to then pay our search advertising firm or our media firm in general to do the work to actually manage that, but we made use of that in particular. Otherwise, we did not find that sort of broader investment in the paid search was a good use for our particular efforts, in part because we were working more to drive sort of interest and awareness broadly at the national level. And so other efforts such as, videos did a better job of sort of doing that in the mind of the public, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your question. Others, I think we've got time for.
Okay, I'm going to do
more.
Melanie and then Barbara Kay. So Melanie, hang on one second.
Okay.
Talk. And then I'm going to unmute you. All right, Melanie?
Yes, hi. Okay, so I had a couple of questions. One is whether you look at whether the attributes that you choose to emphasize, for example, to have people associate with the organization, with the brand, make people more likely to engage with the brand, especially in the way that you're hoping for example, by using a path analysis to look at whether perception of the attributes actually mediates increased engagement in the ways that you're looking to increase engagement, and also whether in terms of target audiences, you answered this a bit with the target audience profiles, but do you think in terms of audiences with different stances towards the organization, or just more so different demographics? For example, some people might not be explicitly not interested in creating meaningful moments for people, but might be interested in providing necessary food.
Got it. Great. Thank you so much. So Melanie, thank you for joining us. Tell us, what's your Yale affiliation and what organization you're with, or where are you from? Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, so I am Yale College class of 2010, and I'm a social and political psychologist and consultant.
Awesome.
And
Thanks
I'm
so much.
in New York.
And you're in New York. Awesome. Oh my gosh. Great. Thanks for joining us. So great question. So you're asking about two questions. So first off is it important? How do you know if those attributes you're building actually lead to people wanting to get involved in the way that you want? Yes, that's exactly the point, right? So we did analysis through this to determine sort of a driver's analysis, right? Like which of these attributes are actually most important in getting people to actually, get involved with the why, for example, or with Feeding America. So, through our research, we determined that and validated that, yes, in fact, these attributes we're building are actually meaningful and will actually cause people to want to get involved with us. So I think that's important to do, such that you're building the things that will actually matter in getting people involved with the organization. And then secondly, this idea of different stances versus demographics, a really great question. This is so complicated for so many nonprofits. There's like three different ways you can slice it, right? Is it a demographic way? Is it about their beliefs and attitudes or how they want to engage? How do you slice and dice it? I think it's different for each organization, maybe in terms of how you want to get them involved. But we found for the YMCA in general, these sort of broad themes bubbled to the top. So no matter whether they were to donate to us or become a member or sign their kids up for a program, these sort of common themes connected across all of those that had to do with, sort of this life stage idea, but also this belief that they believed in diversity and inclusion, they cared about inclusivity, they cared about community, and that was a common thread across all of those. So that was important to do kind of broadly so that we could get people to want to get involved with us, and then they could decide how, whatever works for them in their life stage. Thank you for your question, Melanie. All right, well, I think we were gonna take one more. Did we have one more, Rachel?
I got one more.
Okay.
If we don't get to your question live, you can type it in either to chat or Q&A. We'll save it. If I have time, I'll try to go to Stephanie. If she has a chance to get back to it, we'll try. But just stay in touch with us. But let me get Barbara Kay at least. Hang on one second.
Hello?
All right. Barbara, hi.
Yes, hi there. I'm actually not a Yaley. I'm a Harvard person. Harvard
That's all right. Welcome.
Okay. But yes, YANA is great, and your presentation's been excellent. And actually, one side thing, I was wondering if you would be able to share your slides, because they're so powerful and detailed. But anyway, and then secondly, so I'm doing some consulting for Chinese for affirmative action, which kind of has an outdated name because it does do sort of social justice and affirmative action for everybody, but targets Asian Americans. But what we're finding is, of course, now there's a lot of movement and momentum because there's a affirmative action proposition in California, and then all this Black Lives Matter stuff. So there's a lot of coalition building going on, which is all great. But we're also trying to increase consistency in content and mobilize people around our sort of core stuff, core fundamental stuff, which includes like voter registration, helping recent immigrants with jobs, and census participation. So I guess my question is, how do we keep up the stuff on the bread and increase content when there's all this other kind of stuff and demands going on?
Yeah, I think it's a challenging time because there's so much going on, right? And how to kind of stay true to your core amidst all of that, I think, can be a challenge. I'm not sure if I have an answer for you per se, but I can see the sort of opportunity there, maybe to kind of redefine even the name of the organization and reaffirm, what you do, which seems so important and needed right now, and kind of staying true to that, kind of amidst the broader concern and interest in issues of race and equity across the board. Thank you so much for sharing with us. All right, well, I know that we are coming up on time here, so I want to make sure that we share some just final closing comments with you guys. So first off, just want to reiterate again, this is a great community. We're thrilled to have the Yale Alumni Nonprofit Alliance with Rachel's leadership, and we sure do hope that you guys want to get involved and that you will connect with one another. So if you haven't yet, type your full name in the chat box there. For everyone who's opted in, we'll be sending out an email with everybody's contact information for each other, and I hope that you will support one another, make an introduction, help each other, build on each other's ideas. It's a wonderful network, and we hope that you'll take advantage of that as we move forward. And then finally, once again, get involved. So if you haven't been involved with the Yale Alumni Nonprofit Association, I sure hope you do. Check out the website, great information. There's also on the website, you can sign up for newsletters and emails from your local chapter. So wherever you are, if there's a local chapter, you can make sure you get plugged in with them locally, which will be really great. So please do that. And for anybody in the Chicago area, if you have friends in Chicago, do join our kickoff. I hope you can help us get the chapter going. July 24th, noon Central, and again, sign up on the website there. So hope you guys will join us. Thanks again for your time and your attention today. Whatever your organization, whatever work you're doing, thank you for doing it. It's really an honor to work in the nonprofit sector. We do some of the most important work out there, and I hope that you found some of the brand building guidance and techniques helpful to you as you move forward in your work.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. That was really terrific. I can just see all the thank yous coming through in the chat function. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this month. Keep an eye on our calendar. As Stephanie mentioned, we're starting to expand not just official chapters, but groups. So if you'd like to be signed up to your geographic area, you'll notice if you go to our sign up registration page on our website, the list keeps getting longer. So we're trying to collect that, and we'll share this as a kind of little listserv, but we will be hopefully launching this summer a little bit more granular forums where people can share their areas of interest topically, and we'll see if we can create some other groups and community that way. If you're in Chicago, join us online. Most of our chapter meetings are now virtual and available to everyone. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you to Stephanie. Thank you to everybody, our board. I was reminded another place to connect with each other is through Cross Campus. YANA has one of the largest groups there. So if you're not on that cross-campus platform yet, please join us. There's a lot of great stuff going on in addition to things you might be used to, like LinkedIn and Facebook and stuff. It's a little bit more intimate on the cross-campus chapter, and YANA has its own group set up there. So set yourself up a profile, request to join us, and I get those emails, and I'll patch you in almost immediately. So we'll see you at our next program. Feel free to ask any questions. For those of you who are YANA members, meaning you're a paid donor, and would like a copy of these slides, just let me know. We will be cleaning up and editing the video, and we make that available with post-program survey that we usually send out with your eyes open for that. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe and stay healthy.